S650 for a couple months. There's two main issues that I've noticed with the car that can inhibit the driving experience per se. So that's going to be the topic of discussion in today's video. As you guys can possibly see on my dash, my engine oil temperature is currently 240 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, if you guys own an S650 or you've maybe seen videos on them, there's quite a bit of discussion around this, that these cars exhibit quite high oil temperatures, at least compared to something like the S550. Now, a common misconception that I've seen is that people say these cars don't have any oil cooling, or they don't have the same oil cooling as the base S550s, and that is not true. These cars have the same coolant to oil cooling systems that the S550s had, at least revised for the S650. Now, the reasons that these cars exhibit higher oil temperatures is a couple of things, at least to my understanding. Number one, these cars make more power than the S550s. If I'm not mistaken, the base S550 made around 450 horsepower stock, and these cars with the active exhaust are making 486 horsepower. So obviously, the more power that you have, the more heat that you're going to create. Reason number two, these cars are a little bit heavier than the S550s. I believe they're 100 or 200 pounds heavier than the S550s. So with more weight, the engine and everything else is going to have to work harder, and in result, you create more heat. Now, this still doesn't fully explain how these cars exhibit seemingly quite a bit higher temperatures than the S550s do. I believe another reason is possibly Ford had to adhere to emission standards more in order to be able to produce this car. Oh my goodness. This man almost just merged right into him. Which, mainly within the tune, they had to be more conservative, and that also results in the engine and other components having to work harder. And I believe with higher oil temperatures, it also helps with efficiency, or I don't really know, to be honest, but I believe it does help with emissions. It's not necessarily a problem that these cars exhibit higher temperatures. Obviously, there were a bunch of very smart people in the engineers who designed this car, and they would not have put something out, either within the tune or the way the car is physically engineered itself. They would not have put something out that didn't work as intended. So these cars sitting at 220 to 240 degrees Fahrenheit on oil temps is not necessarily a problem. If you run full synthetic, you can, that oil can withstand a much higher temperature, and you really, in my opinion, don't have much to worry about. The car will go into limp mode somewhere between 270 and 280 degrees Fahrenheit. So there is that. I personally have not seen higher than 250 degrees Fahrenheit oil temp so far. I don't push the car like crazy, and honestly, on the streets, I don't see myself extracting much more out of it to where I would be pushing the oil temps, you know, 260 plus. I have seen people with 2024s at least that seem to exhibit a little bit higher oil temperatures on average than I see. I don't know if that's just a case-to-case thing. To my knowledge, they didn't revise anything from 2024 to now where it would, the 2026s would have lower oil temps on average. I am obviously in the south where we see very hot temperatures, very high humidity here, and it is the summertime, so it's the hottest and most humid time of the year here. But with that being said, again, I haven't seen over 250 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's not a huge concern to me. With that being said, if I were to go to a track, I 100% seeing this becoming an issue. I would say within 5 to 10 minutes of a session, the car would likely go into limp mode, and that's just really not optimal. So what is the solution to this? Well, if you guys know, the S650 performance packs come with an external air to oil cooler, which largely helps to mitigate this issue. The owners with performance packs seem to report that they see, you know, low 200s on average, even with hard driving. You know, like 210 to 220 range. So you're getting about 20 degrees more on average of cooling with that system. Now, you can install a performance pack oil cooler on the base S650s. I forget exactly how much it costs, but it is an offering from Ford Performance, and it is something that I consider doing, as I do want to eventually take this car to a track. Now, with that being said, the problem with that is, let's see if we can, we're not going to spin the tire here. I was hoping the rain would hold off, but looks like that is not the case, so we're going to have to take it a little easy here. But you can install an oil cooler from the performance pack onto the base models. The problem with that is, within the tune, well, let's take a step back here. This temperature that is showing on the dashboard is not the physical oil temperature. Just a side note, this car is so much more predictable. I mean, I never pushed it that hard in the rain when I was on the stock setup, but it just feels so predictable when the tires are spinning with this new setup. Like, it gives you so much more confidence. Obviously, I don't want to go crazy and pull a Mustang and send it off the road, but you guys kind of saw there, I just pretty much blew the tire off in first and second gear, and it's just, you know, stable, which definitely gives you more confidence to have fun with the car. But back to what we were talking about. So the problem with installing the performance pack oil cooler is that the temperature of the oil temp shown on the dash is not the physical temperature. To my understanding, it is an inferred temperature reading. So the ECU is basically using the sensors elsewhere in the engine to estimate the oil temperatures. So the issue with that is when you install the performance pack oil cooler on the base models, you need a tune in order for the ECU to recognize that you actually have the oil cooler. Otherwise, supposedly the oil temperatures will remain the same. Even though they're physically lower, the car will read them as the same, and you won't actually get the full benefit because the car will still read 270 and go into limp mode. So the only way to get the full benefit of the oil cooler is actually to get a tune in conjunction with it, which is really unfortunate. And apparently, even if you get the performance pack oil cooler installed on your base model at a dealership, they won't retune your car for it to know that it has the oil cooler, which is pretty annoying. I mean, I get why they do that, because it would cost them a lot of money to, you know, have to retune the car and stuff and regulations and whatnot, but that kind of limits you, because you basically then have to void your warranty if you want to get the benefits of an oil cooler. So, and not to say, again, if you install the oil cooler, the physical oil temperatures will be lower, but the car will not know that you installed the oil cooler without the tune. So I don't understand exactly how it works, but supposedly it reads the same temperatures, I guess, since it's not the physical oil temperature, and this results in the car still going into limp mode even if your oil temps with the oil cooler aren't actually at 270. So that's pretty unfortunate. Again, I haven't seen over 250, and this is my daily driver. You know, I'm gonna be pretty much doing only street driving with this car, although I do eventually want to take it to a track. But for the core usage of this car, it's not really a concern to me. If it can survive the summer here with these temperatures and the amount that I push it, I personally think that it is a-okay for now. And again, I am on a full synthetic blend now, so that oil can sustain a lot higher temperatures than non-synthetic oil. So it's not really a concern to me. Down the line, if I am to go bolt-ons and tune, the car is 100% going to exhibit higher temperatures, and that's when it can become more of an issue. But at that point, I will have already voided the warranty from doing tuning, so it would just be the cost of installing the oil cooler itself. So those are all considerations. That's the first kind of main problem, and it's commonly talked about with these cars that I've noticed. Again, not really a huge deal to me, as I'm not able to extract that much out of the car on the street anyway. And now we're going to talk about the second issue. So if you guys have watched my other videos, you can probably tell I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with the car and shifting it hard. Still needs some work, but it is my absolute first manual car, and I've only owned it like 2-3 months now, so in due time we'll get even better with the shifting. I am definitely starting to learn the car more though, without a doubt. So the second issue that I've noticed is the factory clutch protection, and in part the rev hang on the stock tune. So what I mean by that is, in the MT82 manual S650s, there is a factory clutch protection programmed in. Now, I don't know this for sure, I'll verify this, but I'm pretty certain that the S550s had this too, but it is supposedly a lot more noticeable on the S650s. So the perfect way to showcase this is with the no lift shift feature. So as you guys can maybe see there is a slight delay, it's literally like a 1 second delay when you use the no lift shift feature on this car. And I'm going to make a whole separate video about no lift shifting because I think it deserves its own video. It's pretty cool that it has this, because I do not believe that the S550s had this. The reason that it's delayed is to protect the clutch. Obviously, that's what clutch protection is. Now, it kind of ruins the purpose of no lift shifting when no lift shifting is slower than shifting it yourself. Because the point of no lift shifting is that you can keep the throttle pinned and it shifts faster than lift shifting. Now, personally, it's not something that, again, is a huge deal to me, but I do notice I'm getting to a point that I can shift faster than the car lets me under hard driving. So we got a nice little C6 right here. See if he wants he doesn't look like he wants to play. That is super clean though. Super clean. Again, for street driving, you know, I'm not a drag racing guy really. I like to have fun with the car, but it's not really a huge deal to me. But it definitely is inhibiting. So the car will not necessarily let you bang gears. I have not experienced any lockouts, knock on wood, to this point. When I do push the car, I do push it pretty hard. I'm not the greatest at shifting, so do with that what you will. But I would say the experience after doing these small mods, which if you guys haven't seen my last video, go check that out, to the shifter, I would say it's at about a 7 or 8 out of 10 for me without having experienced other manuals. I'm sure if I drive a dark horse with the Tremec, it's not going to be as good, but it's not bad. Now, I mentioned in a previous video that I would consider, well, not consider, I do plan to get a short throw shifter kit for the car, and apparently that helps a lot as well, but that is not going to change anything with the factory programming of the clutch protection. So the solution to this is getting a tune. With a tune, you can significantly reduce the clutch protection that's programmed in, and you can also reduce rev hang, which in turn allows you to shift the car faster. The only thing that I have a problem with is, again, the fact that you need to get a tune and void your warranty to mitigate this stuff. But again, there was a team of very smart engineers that designed this car and the way that it functions. And when you change stuff like that, there tends to be some adverse effects some of the time. So without a doubt, reducing the clutch protection is going to increase wear on the clutch. The engineers would not have intentionally programmed the clutch protection the way that it is if it wasn't for a reason. So with that being said, it does scare me a little bit to push the limits of the stock clutch, because it's well known that that is really the weak point of the transmission. To my understanding, the transmission itself is not bad, but the way that it's set up, with the shifter being mounted not to the transmission, along with the factory clutch, are really the primary culprits of lockouts and kind of the reputation that these transmissions get. So I do debate a little bit if it would be more beneficial to do an aftermarket clutch instead of doing a short throw shifter. Now that's obviously quite a bit of a bigger job, more expensive without a doubt. So that's gonna require some consideration from me from what I want to do. I have heard that if you do an aftermarket clutch, it may just turn off the clutch protection. Like the clutch protection may not work anymore, which obviously if you have an aftermarket, more upgraded clutch, you don't need it, to my understanding, so much so. See there with the no lift shift, the car falls on its face a little bit between shifts. I think we'll be able to showcase that again right here. That was not a no lift, but what I will say, and I mentioned this in my last video, is that the modifications to the IRS, the rear subframe, and the shifter have definitely helped tighten up the shift feel. It's definitely easier to shift the car harder, and the car likes it a little bit more. So again, for street driving and normal usage case, it's not a huge deal to me, but it could 100% be improved, and I can see it being inhibiting down the line once I do improve my shifting more and I'm able to shift even faster. So with all of these things being said, those are the two primary things that I've noticed that can inhibit the driving experience a little bit with this car. I would say the clutch protection a little bit more so than the oil temperatures. Again, I haven't had any issues with going into lit mode or anything like that, but it's no secret that the transmission and some of the components of the transmission that I just discussed are really the weak points of this car. So I believe that one thing I would like to know is Ford just started offering the new model, quote unquote, of the S650. Unfortunately, my GoPro overheated, which has become a common occurrence. Thankfully, I didn't lose that much footage, so I'm gonna try and pick up where I left off when it overheated and see if I can get this video done before it overheats again. So what I was saying is that Ford is offering the quote-unquote new version of the S650, which is essentially a performance package with a Whipple supercharger. And you can obviously get this with the MT82. So my question is, are these cars running the stock clutch? Because I don't know of many people that boost their S550s or S650s and did not upgrade the stock clutch. So if those cars are running the stock clutch, it would give me a lot more confidence that I could go ahead and tune out the clutch protection and the rev hang, and the stock clutch would be good to go with taking increased abuse. So with that being said, those were kind of the two main issues and some solutions that I noticed with this car so far. It is kind of frustrating, you know, with this car being at this point $50,000 for the base model. You would expect that, you know, they could offer you a little bit more, but they definitely tied the S650s down more to different variants. If you want the oil cooler and you want it to work in the sense of the tune, the car knowing that it has it within the tune, then you need to buy the performance pack. If you want the better transmission, then you need to buy the Dark Horse. And that's kind of been the case. You know, the Mach 1 was the S650 Dark Horse basically, and that was the only way to get the Tremec in the past. So this isn't anything necessarily new, but it is a little bit frustrating from Ford because, you know, the S650s you could buy new easily in the 40s with options, if not in the 30s at certain points, without a doubt. And now you cannot get these cars brand new much under 50,000, which, you know, it is pretty frustrating, but they have the market cornered, so it is what it is. That's pretty much all I had to talk about in this video. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on these things. I think these are pretty commonly recognized quote-unquote issues with these cars. Again, I don't think it's completely inhibiting to the driving experience where I'm saying, you know, don't buy this car because of these things. It's still a great car. I'm still having a ton of fun with it, and I don't think, obviously, these issues are unfixable, because they are. I think that the conclusion here is that a lot of the improvements with this car are locked behind tuning. So with that being said, it is definitely giving me a lot more reason and incentives to want to tune the car. I think it is kind of annoying that something like the oil cooler benefits can't be accessed without a tune, you know, without voiding your warranty, but it is what it is. So again, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on these things. I think this is still an amazing car, even with these flaws, and I've still really been enjoying it, and I'm really excited to get more into modifications and really turn this car into something even more special. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Again, let me know your thoughts about this topic down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts about anything related to this car, videos I can do in the future that you want to see, other kinds of content, all of that good stuff. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. Consider subscribing to the channel. I try to post videos about this car a few times a month, and I'm looking to post even more about it going forward. So thank you again for watching. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.